So I think before this panel, we all were standing there and talking about, that this is the time after lunch, and everybody will be thinking, that there is another panel which is coming in, which will going to bore them. And before that, some of the activity which was more on the music side and which is being, bringing up some of the energy. So we'll try to continue on that ground. Rather than talking about more generic things, we'll try to share an experience of from the industry which we come in. We are pretty diverse in terms of panel. We see there are a lot of panelists who are coming from different diverse industries. So we'll try to share the experience, what are the challenges which we are facing, what we see in terms of opportunity there, and what is required from industry and government side to enable these challenges. So before just move on to the topic and I reach out to the esteemed panel members, I think I would like to share a few of the context and also few of the key pointers which we see into this area. Why there is a need of moving into multi-modal logistics and integration of it into your backend or whatever you call warehousing in these areas. So first thing is, we see for India, right? India in last decade, we have seen our economy has grown very significantly, and that is where whatever we have achieved till now and what is required from here to move further will not going to come very easily. And that's where your efficiency, standardization, infrastructure will come into a play, and that's where the consolidation of these things, integration will be very, very critical. That is the first point. Second, when we are talking about 5 trillion economy and when we are talking about competitiveness of exports, becoming India as a logistics manufacturing hub, I think there is very significant portion of logistics cost is also coming into a play, right? So there are 14% costs if we see across the developed nation, and what we see in India is 14%, and then what we see in developed nation is somewhere around 8-9%. So there is a gap of 50% additional cost which we see in. So how this, so we can talk about this, that there are efficient countries which is managing in 8 and 9, but there is a journey which they have also gone through while moving from their economical growth, and that's where we are also in, and that's where some of the key initiatives which government is also taking, and there are industry plays also very, very important on that side. So that topic also we will touch base on, how do we bring down that and what is required to do that. That another one is, if we see, in terms of, when we say multimodal for India, I think it is more of a rail right now, and then we'll see there is a lot of work to be done to move into the waterways or, other mode of transportation. But majorly on the rail side also, right now there is a, huge demand from, if you ask from industry perspective, to move on to that ground, because that brings you more cost competitiveness, that brings you more sustainability drive. But there are a lot of things which doesn't exist right now to move into there, and that's where point-to-point delivery through road transportation is being promoted more. And that's where this national logistics policy, which right now at an talking stage and putting up into an implementation phase, we have to see how from now to next 10-15 years how that's turned out, and how that development happens. So that's where I think these cost competitiveness and then integration plus standardization of some of the activities which is more on the transportation and warehousing front, how does that happen? And that's where some of these points on the cost side, on the why there is a percentage of share on road is more, not on rail, though there are a lot of lucrativeness towards rail in terms of sustainability, cost competitiveness. So these things we'll try to touch base with the panel members, how technology can play a role in terms of integration. More on the consumer side also we'll try to cover up. With that, I think I would like to start with our panel member, Mr. Arbindo, who comes with a pretty large industry of cement, which is more of a commodity, and also a large play in terms of using rail as a mode of transportation. So we would like to understand from you, in terms of when we talk about this national logistics policy coming in, how do you see, the infra will play a critical role, and what is the critical challenges right now in terms of last mile, first mile connectivity, which is playing a role in to the cost competitiveness very significantly?
Yeah, thank you, Ankur. Happy to be here. Nice session from the morning, many things to learn about it. See, when we talk about this multimodal concept and when we bringing the national logistics policy, one of the key point that you need to understand is the infrastructure that's going to happen over it, right? When we talk about railways, yes, railways are one of the cheapest mode of transport compared to road, carbon emissions, everything is one part of the story. But when we talk about the first mile and the last mile connectivity, there where the cost lies, there where the cost beeps up. And for every business to be in the limelight, to be in the market, you have to have these cost components controlled in a very nice manner. So today, if you just give you example, today the in-transit point from the railways, that the speed have increased over the rail, the tracks have been upgraded, everything has been done. But what about the terminal? So the terminal doesn't have the minimum infrastructure to handle the cargo. So as that is where the industry's role comes in. The private players needs to come in. Now we have to come up with the government, say policies wherein you have to invest in your terminals, and you have to see that how the rail or the stock which comes to you has a faster turnaround time, and you get back to railways as soon as possible. So that is where we need to understand that part, number one. Number two, when we talk about this, the railway infrastructure that's there in the country, I think more than everybody will agree to it that railways are more or less unionized in the stations have that kind of labor laws, and on their labor, the criticalities are there, different criticalities in every area. So that is where the government has to come in and assist the industry, saying that this is the policies and this is how it has to be controlled, because no private player will be able to get into the nitty-gritties of that and control that until unless government doesn't support it. So here the policy making plays a major role to, in the Gati Shakti model to assist the private players and the industries to get into the final mode. And that is where the cost, standardization and collaboration, rest of the things comes in after that.
I think you touched base on this government policy when you're talking about. So, do you think only government, just rolling out the policy, creating a dedicated department of logistics master plan, will going to help, or there is a lot of contribution required from PPP model which is there, and that's where I think in terms of bringing their trust, bringing their belief in the system is also very, very important. Do you want to touch upon?
Yeah, definitely. The policy or the making a government department won't have at all. You have to have private players, a collaboration of private players, a kind of committee that would, wherein the experience of private players comes into typical private players, and they give you the inputs that how a mechanism has to be developed. DPIIT is one of the forums that we have now. As private industries, as private players, we have forums, FICCI, FIMI, different forums are available, CIA, wherein we push up that feedback to the government. Now, what I really feel as a professional is the feedback to the government in the exact pattern is not there. So might be in the last 10 years, 12 years, we have seen many of the transformational changes that are had in the logistics and the supply chain industries, right? So the point is when we push the correct feedback to the government, there are policies and now the government is inclined to give you a push on all the fronts that you require. So the point is the right feedback has to go, and then the industry as a whole need to play a bigger role than what we were looking till time. So that is the point of sustainability, that we have to continue our business and in a more ethical manner.
Perfect. Thanks. So moving from more of infra and consolidation which we are talking about, I think I'll just reach out to Avnish to share his experience more on the because you are coming from apparel textile industry where demand might not be supporting the economy of scale in terms of fulfilling the consumer demand. There something has to be delivered, something has to be delivered. So how do you see this concept will help in terms of integration and addressing aggregation problems or issues which you want to address more on the demand supply side?
See, coming from a fashion industry, the ballpark changes. Like, we may not get consolidation, maybe to deliver the consolidated loads or move in bulk from one place to another. And demands keep coming from every nick and corner. because when you see, the B and the C class towns are also fashion conscious. It's not that they don't understand brands or they do not want to wear, a branded clothing. So when it comes to the last mile delivery, it is always a challenge. Like we may not have the bulk loads to reach to the last, mile which is there. So we depend a lot on the regional players. So there is still a lot of work to be done when it comes to with respect to the policies and the frameworks which are there. But when it comes to the part loads, then there is a huge challenge. And but like we said, fortunately, when it comes to country like India, we are really opening up, and we have seen a lot of players and people getting into the logistics side. Earlier, that was not the case. Now you see many aggregators are there. You see the porter has come up, and there are many more players, and also people are seeing value in this. So yes, going forward, I really do see a lot of improvement which is going to happen on this side. But yes, still, it's a work in progress. So maybe next 10 years down the line, things are going to be much better.
So, Avnish, you just talk about, the consumer needs, which is, whatever they want, that has to get delivered, with irrespective of what is the infra, what is the, connectivity available right now or not, you have to meet their demands, right? And you see currently major challenge on the last mile and first mile connectivity to address that, right, in terms of integration. So just to build on that, from consumer demand and consumer trends perspective, maybe I want to touch upon with Sharbani, you coming from Unilever, and, there are different channels which you are using in terms of aggregating the customer demands and then using the technology to deliver, the customers as early as possible. But how do you see, this multi-modal warehousing concept which will come in, and that's where the role of value-added services, which will be most critical one. How do you see that journey from now, what you are managing, maybe from your fulfillment centers, which is pretty large right now in terms of very much technology enabled, from there to move into these warehouses, and how do you see that journey from omni-channel perspective, maybe? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we start from always consumers before we go to the solution. Yeah, and I think while I'll address back to the national logistics policy later, but what is, we have a concept of raise the floor and raise the ceiling. So if you have to focus on raise the floor, then we have to focus on what is the consumer needing today. And if you look at the FMCG context, as we are around 55,000 crore company, it is always said that if you go to a retail dukan and you take out Unilever from that, your dukan becomes 2/3 empty, right? So that's a responsibility we all play in Unilever. From that perspective, we realize that, we are still B2B, but there is a dinosaur way of, market is expanding with Amazon and Flipkart, where the need for the day is how quickly you can go to your customers or consumers, which in supply chain language we call resilience, agility, and fulfillment speed, yeah? So if speed is the new currency, then the requirement is that how soon you can fulfill an order. And that's what I was telling in the morning, that we don't want to call it out warehouse anymore, or warehouse in Unilever. We call them as fulfillment center or a mini factories. And why do we call it so? Because we believe that when we receive one order from an outlet, which is typically having, say, 30 line items, and if you can imagine that we sell around 250 crores a day, then you can imagine the number of lines our 26 warehouses are managing, yeah? So there's a need of segmentation, and on that segmentation thought, of course, technology comes in. And if the question is around that, how are we addressing in that technology? So, if you think through in your mind before you design a technology, it's more about how quickly you can pick, how quickly you can sort, how less you travel in the warehouse, and how less you let your man-machine movement is least in the warehouse. If you think all of that in your mind and design either in the AI or in a basic solver, you will come to know the kind of technology you need. And I will not talk about the choice of technology that we might have, but it's very clear now in the market that in the FMCG space, there is specific technology available for a high-speed SKU. So if I have to dealing with A-class category, it would be, maybe the technology is put to light, where there'll be millions of crates running on the conveyor where the lights will blow in where I have to fulfill the orders. If you talk about B segments where the volume is large, there it could be sort by light, which is a different technology. If you talk about C segments where it's smaller, it could be a handheld terminal scanning, which you often see in the modern trade stores. And as the question came as Omni, so Omni is nothing but, we used to call modern trade, right? Now we call e-commerce. Omni is like in between the two. So any kind of stores which is not a modern trade, but not a typical kirana, but in between, which I'm sure we all see in our household society. For those ones, we are calling Omni, where we believe that the formatting of the stores, the input in the stores, the merchandising in the stores can be driven in a manner which can be a high throughput location for a company to grow. And such stores also will be needing the same amount of investment, both from sales, marketing, branding, and supply chain to fulfill it. And I would link that back with NLP now, because if you look at NLP, National Logistics Policy, they're talking about warehousing standardization, yeah? And standardization is nothing but you need to have complete clarity on your input and output, yeah? So if you're making soap in a machine, you would know that how many bars you will make. If you're making oral care toothpaste, you would know how many toothpaste you will make. Similarly, if you're running a conveyor belt with some machine in the warehouse, we should know that how much output we should get, yeah? So we are nobody in the zone where we depend on the LSP to say can or they cannot do it, right? So I think a lot to learn from the standardization policy in the NLP, and more, and I see that maybe my FMCG colleague will be agreeing with me, because we don't like it or not, we are in the industry of speed, because we call in Unilever that if a mail do not answer by tomorrow, that mail is of no use, yeah? That's the speed at which it works, yeah? Similarly, in technology also in the warehouse, if order comes today, it has to go tomorrow. There hardly N+2 works in the market anymore. So I would say, yeah, it's a bit of, Ankur, very high intensity of the technology, the way we see in manufacturing. There are lots of logistics tech companies and players are available in the market. We just need to have a job of linking that back with proper standardization with NLP.
Thank you, Sarbani. I think you have touched base upon pretty much, the compulsory use of technology to manage that level of scale, which I think Unilever is managing currently. So similarly, on that ground, maybe I'll just reach out to Neeraj, who also comes with the similar industry of FMCG on the Colgate side. So see, to manage that level of scale and the expectation on the consumer side, where are we lacking in terms of, performance measures, or what is the role of SLAs, KPIs there in terms of cost, in terms of timely deliveryness? So what is your take on that, if you want to just share some perspective? Yeah. And mostly on quality and reliability perspective also, which is the crucial segment right now lacks in the multimodal transportation, if we say.
Okay, thanks. So I would start with actually the multimodal approach. So FMCG sector, typically the railway contribution is very less vis-a-vis the developed countries, and I think Colgate is also not in terms of the contribution. The major factors, I think some of the panelists already spoke about, is the overall cost of the movement. It is not only about the railway leg, which may be faster, cheaper, but when we talk about the overall leg, this is where the total cost goes up. And it is not only about cost, it is also about reliability, right? So when we move shipments from one location to another location, now in this highly competitive world, we are in, at times inventories are thin, or the customers want our products to reach faster, we need a visibility and committed timelines to be delivered. And when we talk about railways, unfortunately, we are not there yet in terms of the reliability. And I would also touch base on the quality of the movement. There are many times, at the terminals, the infrastructure to load and unload is not as per the requirement, which leads to damages. There are many times when the consignments actually got wet in rain, and that, of course, did not add value to our customers, but also leads to loss. So from there, overall cost of the shipment goes up. Now, coming back to the KPIs in the traditional logistics, As I think the fellow panelists also talk about, it is about agility, and I think I would like to give a lot of credit to the e-commerce companies, especially in the 4 to 5 years, wherein I think they changed the expectations, right? Earlier, starting from, I mean, not from the corporate's point of view, but as a consumer, when we used to order or send a courier, it used to take, 6 to 10 days. I think gone are those times. So first of all, I think the e-commerce startups and also the tech service providers who have evolved in the last 3 to 4 years. Now, what they have brought in is the change in consumer mindset, right? Now, as a consumer, I want to know when I have ordered something, when is it reaching? It gives a real-time visibility. So from, we talk about omni-channel. So the consumer deliveries is something which is totally tech-enabled, gives a clear-cut visibility to all our consumers. But some part of the middle mile, we come from an oral care company, and some of the B2B orders are not full truckload, and it moves through transshipments. This is where, I think industry needs a solution in terms of the tracking, both in terms of the service provider, also in terms of the tech angle. And I think that's what will lead more visibility and value to the system. And lastly, I want to say one more thing. It is, when we talk about logistics, we always talk about cost, right? We don't talk about the value that, logistics professional add to the company in terms of the competitive edge and also in terms of the incremental business. So whenever we invest in the technology, it is imperative that we look at the value that we create. The business case for us to invest in technology will be easier to do. I think that's my take on that.
Perfect. I think you have touched base upon the significant points in terms of not only cost but more of a reliability of operations, and that's where I think it is important, that how government will create an infrastructure which will be more reliable, because right now, whenever you move goods through rail, it is okay. It is competitive, maybe from cost perspective on one lag, but if you see the complete consolidated one, you might not be that competitive what you see in point-to-point delivery. So for doing that, in terms of consideration of creating a separate infrastructure or giving a priority to the commercial container movements over passenger, how that sync will happen. And that's where I think I'll just try to touch base with Anirban, more of the role of standardization, the role of bringing that sync in, how government can support and accelerate, more than support, I think how do they accelerate that journey of model shift from road to rail.
Yeah. Good afternoon all. So we are into manufacturing of wood industry. We are into plywood industry. So in the era of sustainability, we are heavily pressurized on that, getting the sustainability in place. So one of the way from a supply chain professional that to achieve the rail movement. Now doing so, what we are also realizing that the terminal handling is still it's a bottleneck, and that resulting into that end of the day, that transit time from start to end, it is more than compared to the road movement. So like she was talking about per day 250 crores of business. So they are 12 days or 13 days business, maybe our annual business. But I think for all of us as supply chain professional, 2 or 3 things are common for us, that cost rationalization and reduction in the OT, that how fast we can reach to our end customer, and sustainability. So we are looking from this NLP, first of all, the speed of execution. So if it is not the railway connectivity, still it will take some time. But even the road infrastructure, if it goes further better, what is going to happen today in UA bill calculation, we calculate 250 kilometers per day. If we compare to the first world countries, it is 600 kilometers, 700 kilometers, a normal run our truck generally covers. So in our mindset, perhaps 300 kilometers is the kind of acceptable distance of a full truck load running in a day, which also means that it is spending more time on the road, carbon emission is more, and it also impacting on our total inventory management, because we have to have a higher inventory, resulting which what is happening that cost is not getting rationalized. So what we are looking for the standardization on 3 elements. One is that certain standards of road connectivity across India. Second thing is that the technology. So we are talking just during our ice-breaking session that where we are in terms of tracking mechanism of our trucks. So still there is no common platform perhaps. So every one of us are perhaps using some other platform, and we are trying to get kind of a standardization in tracking our vehicles. So if government can come up with some common platform where all the trucks, like it's like a registration number, we are talking about the tagging. So if we have similar something like that, and that can convert into a real-time tracking, that is the second thing. And third thing is that the infrastructure in the railway terminals, because still it's a bottleneck. I think most of us, if not all of us, will agree that that transit time from one city to another city, definitely railways is faster. But if we consider that time we are taking for after reaching that destination, it's moving from truck to the trail to a truck, and then it is moving to the end consumer or in our depot. What is happening, that level of infrastructure and handling specifically, we are not very sure. So resulting which what is happening, that most of the time commodities like cement or heavy commodities are happening where the end product has not much of an impact if there is any the scratch. But for example, for our laminates, a scratch on laminates is for us, it converts into 100% value proposition to zero value proposition. So there is the challenges where we are really looking for improvement of these areas, which should help us into rationalization cost, and then we can talk about the sustainability.
Sure. I think, so Anirban, you are talking about standardization. I just want to touch base with Varun on the same ground, because when we talk about standardization, and right now the players which is available also in the market in terms of executing this multi-modal, there is a lot of sync required between these two, right? So there are, if we say right now what exists is the intermodal more than multi-modal. So in that frame also you have to reach out to so many people in terms of executing of one single cargo. The ease of doing is not that easy, which you go into the road transfer, you contract with one guy and then just get rid of it. But in this you have to reach out to 2 or 3 different stakeholders, and there is nobody right now available who takes that as a whole, or that as a documentation flexibility around, right? So on that ground, I think if you can just touch base, one is right now the fragmented market which is available in terms of small to medium scale service providers, and what we are expecting in multimodal in terms of large players who take the ownership and providing that facility as a whole consolidation. How do you see that play happening? And the collaboration will definitely be expected out of that. But is it something more favorable to small and medium scale guys to contribute? And what is required for them in terms of developing that capabilities into, to bring in their buy-in and competing with large scale players?
Thanks, Ankur. See, I'll start with the cost aspect. If we look at, and I think all our panelists mentioned that railway seems to be the most optimal, commercially most optimal way of freighting roads, but still 70% of our movement is happening through trucks. There's certainly a reason for that, and one reason is commercial. If you put numbers in perspective, the rail transport pans out to around 1.6 rupees per kilometer per ton. And at the same time, road is 3.6. So we are talking about 2 rupees on average pan-India level, which rail is cheaper at. And there are a lot of business for which this 2 rupees can be make or break. If you're selling your product in the market at 35 rupees a kg, this could be a significant part of your margin. But still, if you look at the overall value chain, the rail freight has to be connected on both ends. And that's where the multi-modal concept is coming. And the service providers we have in the industry are not mature. This is where the large scale companies get an advantage, because they have a scale to put this model in place for themselves, while players who are medium to small scale are not able to do that. And that's where I think this government intervention is going to enable these players to start competing head-on with the scale players. And that's one point which was coming out clearly, and I think will help this industry to grow from medium to large and small to medium. I'll also relate this to certain, so we have talked about Gati Shakti, we have talked about multi-modal logistics policy. Primary problem which these policies are trying to solve, if you look at our GDP contribution of logistics has to be reduced to half. We want to match South Korea and US of the world. Why? Because we want to compete globally. Second, we are top 5 economies in the world now. But still on logistics effectiveness, I think we were ranked 44 last time. Our aim is to improve it by more than half in next 3 to 5 years. And all the enablement is moving from digitization to models to infrastructure and enabling this industry to grow very fast. Are these plans looking effective on paper? They are. They are the way they have been established and set up. But how they pan out and how they work out is something we'll see over time. But as an industry, as a logistics industry, everyone is very excited about seeing the way it has been planned and put in front of us in the last 2-3 years, whatever time frame we've seen. Coming to what this will enable us to do. So one is, as a country, we'll be in a better position to start competing internationally. If I relate this to a business example, which we are facing live right now, so there's an industry in atta in which we export atta making out of India. There was a ban that came in and which said you can't export atta made out of Indian wheat and you have to use some other wheat. Now, and suddenly the market opened up. There are manufacturing capabilities in India and it's not a very capex intensive initiative. You can set up a capacity anywhere in the world, and there were multiple capacities that came in very fast in different parts of the world, including Dubai, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and all so on and so forth. Now the industry is now moving, decentralizing from India, which was our traditional base, to international, and there will be a commercial competition you'll have to face the moment this opens up. The product, the raw material, which is like 70% of the cost, is same for everyone because it is getting imported from somewhere, as good as you import in A location, B location, C location. Processing cost is a small part of the overall COGS. So it ends, and the decision comes on the logistics. Where would the logistics be effective will decide where this industry will start building and centralizing. And that's where this policy is going to enable us as a country, if we are able to meet these economies which are already developed. If you look at the port turnaround time, in India it's from 44 hours, I'm hearing it has gone down to a day. But in China kind of economy, it's a few hours, it's 8 to 10 hours is what I recollect. So we have to compete with them, and that port infrastructure, a relatable example, we were evaluating a vessel import and we were trying to get it in a specific port, Nhava Sheva. And we were told you can't do it because to get a berthing of a vessel, it may take you almost a week, and the detention will be so high that it's better to freight goods to another port, which could be Mundra or further south, for using in Maharashtra. So those are the challenges I think we'll have to navigate very effectively as an economy as we develop and become internationally more competitive. And same for domestic kind of scenario, because in domestic what is happening for mid-scale players like ourselves to compete with I think the players which are bigger, these multi-modal logistic parks which are coming up across country, we believe these will give us a right infrastructure platform to straight away go and compete with scale. And that's what I think is going to be our watch out, our responsibility to execute along with the government. Yeah.
Thanks, Varun. I think we have just left out one of the part on the infra side, and I'll say left out rather than that, the savior, basically the industry which is more on pharma's front. I think Rajesh, we just wanted to hear you more on, the infrastructure availability right now and their evolution which you see in next, coming years from cold chain perspective on the first mile and last mile delivery front.
That is a fantastic part of question. Thanks for that. So all my learned panelists spoke about time and cost, which is of course important in terms of any industry. I would like to append this in the sense a pharma industry works in that order, like patient care, efficacy of the product, and then the cost. Okay, so what is the problem statement for pharma industry looking at the multimodal transportation? So you roughly, if you see any reports published, around 8.5 lakh of chemists, 1.5 lakhs of wholesalers, and number of corporate hospitals coming in. And on the other hand, it's a very complex structure of manufacturing in terms of third-party toll manufacturers, whatever you name them. Many of them US FDA approved, so India is getting into a manufacturing hub also. Having said this, what is the need of multimodal transportation in pharma industry? Let me give you an example. When I spoke of efficacy and patient care, what happens if a patient doesn't get a cold chain vaccine in time? One thing, either the product loses efficacy, or second thing, even if the product is efficient and efficacious, it may not reach in time. I'll share a live example which happened during COVID. So if you remember, there was a span when all the airports were getting shut down based on the state rules of COVID guidelines. So when Bombay airport was operational, West Bengal airport was completely shut down. With some, if I remember right, there are 5 states which were not allowed to land in West Bengal airport. One was Maharashtra, Bombay, and second was Goa, Gujarat, and 2 more states. So now this is the area wherein multimodal has come in. So our goods moved to a place like Ranchi by flight. And from Ranchi, they were transported by road to Calcutta to reach the patient. Now, is there extra cost? Yes. If you want to have an efficient product, you have to spend on cold chains. Extra cost. Okay. Number 2 is the way the transshipment was being tracked. Probably that was the worst part when pharma industry realized that there is no single tracking mechanism. So you have to have multiple point tracking. So when my goods are moving by air, I have a different tracking mechanism. So when my goods are going by road from Ranchi to Kolkata, different tracking mechanism. It was person dependent. So during that time, even the transporters persons were not available because they were also impacted by COVID or there were employee strength restrictions. And that is the area wherein this particular sort of model will be providing efficacy. How? So this model has a ULIP platform in it. Okay, so Unified Logistics Integrated Platforms. So what this model proposes is you will be having very qualified vendors who will be uploading on this model, and then they will have transparent visibility to the movement of the goods as well as the services what they are providing. So if we look at a pharma perspective, cost comes in a different way. Like when I'm looking at cost, government is putting capping on essential medicines through NLEM, through NPPA. So there is a restriction on the maximum retail price that we can sell the goods. And train, as we already discussed, is the cheapest mode for pharma industry. Now, if I'm able to save this cost and abide by the government regulations of having a fixed MRP for some essential medicines, I think that is the best way for India to become a world hub of pharmaceutical products, which today it is on a very, very booming phase. So I think on this particular aspect, I see that multimodal transportation is going to give a cost benefit, last mile benefit in terms of patient care and efficacy of the product. So problem statement probably is a complex network in pharmaceuticals and the temperature controlled movement of various APIs, that is raw materials, and the finished goods that will be solved by this particular model.
Yeah. So I think Rajesh, you touched base again, how you will be able to consolidate is ULIP. But that is, right now, it's still a far way from where we are right now, and that's where I think a lot of work required in terms of standardization and consolidation again. And I just want to share an experience on standardization. I was just talking to one of our global head of transportation visiting India, and we were traveling to one of our Mumbai DC, which is in Bhiwandi. I just asked him, how many type of trucks you have in Europe, basically, if you. So he just told me, if I, consolidate everything on dry, bulk, all front, it could be 6 or 7 type of trucks which we have from standardized transport perspective. And I just told him, just imagine how many types of trucks we have in India. So he said it could be 15, 20. I said it's more than 600 plus. And that's where, we lack. And that's where there is a lot of journey which is required to get cover up. And it won't come very significantly or very easily in next couple of years. There are, maybe 10, 15 years will be required to move into that direction. When we moved from Mumbai to Bhiwandi, actually he were really able to count 50 plus trucks on the road itself within 1.5 hour. That many type of trucks we have. So I just want to bring back again that point of standardization because that is very, very critical on transportation and also on the warehousing operations front. And maybe Sharbani, I'll just come to you on that. You are managing a bit level of scale and different type of products in your fulfillment centers. So how do you see, that one is from the different primary transportation which is coming in, which is in your control, but more on the last mile connectivity which is out of your control. It is more on dependent on the market. And then maybe if you can also touch base upon you have different type of categories, SKUs, right? So how the different material handling systems are actually being standardized to manage that. Right now it is only Unilever, but when you move into this multi-modal logistics park where you want to co-share or you want to work with different industry, how do you see that easiness of doing it?
So I first address the question on transportation. So, as you rightly said, in the first mile, trucks are pretty much standardized. Yeah? So Unilever, maybe we work with 50 transporters, but the truck types would not be more than 20. Yeah? But in the last mile, it's like a ocean, yeah, because it's like over the years, CFAs, they have managed the way they want to manage. So, we call it RTT, which is right truck type solution, yeah. So how you can think through that? So one of the possible direction could be that a depot, as I was giving again a Unilever example. So for example, typically, if you do 225 crore sales a day, any of our large depot would be managing 4 to 5 crore sales a day. So, and if you divide that by basic 9 tonners, you get the number of trucks that we need. But now we realize that we really can't do this mathematics and go back and tell the transporters, you do X, Y, Z, कहीं पे तुम truck का body बढ़ा दो, 9 को 12 कर दो, कहीं पे तुम 3 को 4 कर दो. That's not working out, yeah. So we really walked on an unconstrained mindset. We said that what is, moment of truth is the order that's coming in. And what is the moment of truth is the capacity that you are managing in the warehouse. And what is variable is that how many times you want to go to your customers. And you will go to your customers by truck, yeah? So if that is the analogy you have to follow, then very simply put, we are working with few of the tech companies. I probably can't take the names, but they actually walked a RTT for us and told us that the 26 locations to which we manage Lever's business, of course, we know we are the sabun company, so everywhere we sell detergent and soaps, but there are some corners of the country where we are disproportionately big in beauty, which is Lakme. Some corners we are growing disproportionately big in skincare. Somewhere we're growing big in HFD, what we recently acquired from GSK. So all these products need different, innovation, I would call, not intervention, yeah? So if you deal with Lakme, it needs, smaller trucks, but different types of trucks. If you deal with Horlicks, which is very hygroscopic in nature, you probably need a truck which is having a vertical body more, yeah? Which if you talk about shampoos and other part, still we're in India, so 5 rupees ka shampoo sells the best, so you need more voluminous cargo to move. So in a nutshell, Ankur, if I have to answer you, that in Levers, we are clearly working towards a RTT strategy, which we call right truck type, which will tell us not from our experience, but from data, and this has last 5 years data getting churned out in the solver, that what kind of truck types we would be having in our different nodes. And now we are working with our transporters to make them invest on it. And now the second question I'll touch upon that, this is a strategy with LSPs, yeah? We are no more telling that you are the 10 companies, please give me RFQ, I'll decide who is the cheap cost. So pointing to Neeraj's point from Colgate, that's a value as a professional we bring it to the table, is no more negotiation as a value partner, right? So we are working on customization clearly on that because we know that 5 years from now, at least for levers, we would not be working with anybody who's not talking green logistics, right? So I will not touch upon that today, but this is the architecture of transportation. Now, if I go to the warehouse, again, as I was telling some of, my first session, that we genuinely deal with, so many billion outlets every day. So we have a clear understanding of the technology that we want to use in our warehouse. As I speak, the warehouse is in a transition journey from block storage to your semi-mechanized, to mechanized, to fulfillment center, which almost look like a feel of factory. I'm sure my colleagues from the e-commerce industry, they would have felt it, seen it in India and of course abroad. So if you walk into the warehouse, it is now conveyor belt, yeah? It's no more, we are discussing pallets or anything else over there. So if you walk into any such kind of warehouses and you again think through, segmentation comes into the picture. And there, as I said, the design team who works with they really work on how less I can work how less time I can travel on the shop floor, how quickly I can pick up one case, how quickly I can sort one case, and how accurately I can invoice one case. And sometimes in fulfillment center, it is one pieces, because remember, we are in the evolution of direct to consumer, and we are almost working out with distributor kind of a way of working. So there, Ankur, I would say it's again an ABC segment, and depending on the load that the fulfillment center manages, the choice of technology could be sort by light, could be put by light, could be HHT based, could be a scanning based available. And in terms of the equipment you talked about, we are coming out of this the trolleys or RTs or BOPTs. I'm sure we all use that. There's a lot of interventions by small robots or cobots in some of our fulfillment centers. And I don't know whether you are familiar with ASRS. It is a bit expensive. And I think Neeraj was mentioning there has to be a business case for that. And ultimately, if this investment works out, then we have to grow sales. So I think what makes me proud that we are really working hand in hand with sales and marketing now to grow the business. And I think ASR is another technology which works beautifully well in any of the e-commerce, Amazon or Flipkart. I haven't seen Jio's fulfillment center, but I've seen in Amazon center. So Unilever is very clearly working on this ASRs in Chennai and Sumerpur. And it is expensive, 35 crores, 1 or 2 unit, but it actually gives us the leverage to double the turnover, which is exactly the business case talks about. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarvani. I think you have covered up pretty well.
Ankur, just like to add one point to it,
Yeah,
like what you were just continuing on
please
to it. Like when it comes to the warehousing, like how do you want to consolidate loads? I think you should go a step backward and look at your warehouse order management system. How are your orders flowing in? So you may have a particular customer which is being serviced daily, but you may look at the options of maybe servicing him once a week or twice a week. That way the consolidation happens, you save on your packaging costs. So, and basically look at the way how you can leverage technology. So like what we have done is we devised a concept which we call as smart warehousing. So you devise the warehouse however you want. You can build it like a home, like where you want your bedrooms to be, where you want your drawing rooms to be. So just like that, you can devise your warehouse the way you want to be. You can, like we have a warehouse within a warehouse concept. So we have divided our warehouses into different warehouses within a warehouse, which is in the system, which basically caters to the different demands and different customers. So that way it reduces my put away time, it increases my picking efficiency, and able to service the customers better. So look at warehousing. You may not be able to implement high-end technologies like robotics and ASRS, because if you look at the turnover time and also you look at the cost perspective, it's quite high. When you compare it with the Indian manpower and the cost, so that's going to take a large amount of years to recover your cost. But if you break down your warehouse function into smaller parts, maybe like a picking strategy, a put-away strategy, a packing strategy, or maybe an order management system, these small activities, you drill down to your small activities and look at ways where you can leverage a technology and try to put the thinking into the system and let the people and the managers be the executioners of that policy. So if you work that, it's really worked really wonders.
Perfect. So I think we have tried to touch upon almost major context which we want to touch. Now I just want, seeing the time, it's 10 minutes left. So just to conclude of our discussion, basically, if maybe Aurobindo, if you want to just summarize one or two key uh, you know requirement which will make this multimodal concept to reality more efficient execution. Maybe one or two major aspects which you see legs and which is required, a focus area, just touch base on that, and then maybe we move to questions from audience.
Yeah. Thanks, Ankur. I mean, if you really talk on the policy part that I have already talked in the first session, and that is one part that we have to see. Now, as an industry, as a profession of industry, we have to understand what is good for the industry. That is what we have to come out now. I mean, as professionals, we need not to be in the silos, but then we have to see everything from the industry perspective. This was the need of the hour. We have to come out of our comfortable spaces, of our competitive age, and we have to talk really on how do the industry grow, how do we contribute to the industry. Now, when we talk about this, one is digitalization, that is technology that Shavrin already talked about. So how do we integrate, come along and come out of the concepts like co-warehousing, where do we share our resources and see that how we bring down the cost and bringing more of efficiency in the overall supply chain. This is one of the basic aspects that I think the Indian industry need to look into, and we are missing at this point of time, which as on this kind of forums, we need to integrate it and see that the country benefits for it. I think as far as the national logistics policy is concerned, many of the aspects are touched. I mean, even digitalization, HR practices, many of things have been touched upon over this. We have to see how on ground level the implementation happens, and if at all the policies are there in place, how do we see, how do these public-private partnerships comes in, so that overall the infrastructure and the efficiency comes into, are the major things that comes into the play. So very much positive on the NLP, but then how it gets implemented, that's the crux of the story. And onus of that lies more off with the private industries, because then government has a way to work, but the private industries are one who would like to collaborate with each other and then go ahead with the kind of infrastructure or the what's the need of the hour. That's more vigilant to the private industries. So I think as professionals, we need to understand that and go ahead with that kind of answer.
Perfect. So I think if you really see, this multi-modal can be a real anchor towards the journey of sustainability, which we are talking about. But to reach there is a lot of work which is still pending and which is required more on, cost competitiveness will also come once, we move through this channel, but more on, infra, more on incentive schemes to promote this, also on the value-added services, majorly on the warehousing front, plus, some of the reliability concerns in terms of timely delivery, quality of handling, all system that will be going to, impact this execution, and that will play a big role to have a model shift from road to rail or other mode of transportation which is coming in. So I think I would really like to thank all the panel members for sharing your views and sharing your industry perspective around on it. I would just ask one last question, maybe quickly in few seconds, if you want to summarize, Nirban. Maybe, what is the role of, as an industry, we can play into it, and what is the support which we see government to accelerate? Maybe quickly on the same ground, what is lacking right now?
Okay, I think there will be always a good to have and must to have. So as an industry, if we can come to a conclusion that what is must to have, then, am I audible? Yeah. So those elements, because we have to start from somewhere. And if we want to start with all elements or say all 10 subjects, it is very difficult to gain some results. So differentiating between the good to have and must to have, identify few 3 or 5 must to haves, and then we collaboratively we work on that. That should give us a better flavor of getting the maximum out of this NLP.
Just want to highlight one or two. What is that must to have? Right.
One must to have is that having common platform for communication and getting the real-time data. So again, is my perspective from where I'm saying. Second thing is that second must to have for especially when we are talking about a lot on the rail transportation, the transshipment points or the terminal handling. I think that is second must to have what we really feel that which going to be a game changer. And third thing is that again, I'll get into the rail transportation, that how we can ensure that not if I don't have a full rake load, how one container or half a container load, how can I move, in a timely and cost-effective manner. For me, these are the 3 points where I really feel that must have, where we can have a lot of benefits we can get immediately.
Thank you. So with that, I think we just leave it to audience. If any questions, we have a few minutes before we close the session. Yeah, please. Can you just pass on the mic, maybe there?
Hi Shrabani, my question is to Shrabani. So I belong to FMCG industry, and that's where one of the channels which have recently grown, and it's still in nascent stage but growing, is D2C, as you spoke about. Now is the time when not only Amazon and Flipkart are there, but many grocery businesses are there which are delivering in a very quick short time. How do you see D2C business growing in future? What's kind of a growth that you see? And secondly, as you are already struggling around the last mile, especially for D2C, since the volume would be low, as you said, at times we have to speak in pieces, not cases. How do you see that problem also evolving with D2C growth? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So so B2C is going to be there because B2C is catering to a consumer at home, while B2B also is catering to the retail stores. Yeah, so both going to exist, but at some point in time, one will crowd the other. Yeah, so obviously from the kirana where you're ordering, if the kirana has to be efficient to have all your assortment available to give it to you. So if today you're sitting in your house when you're ordering for something, your order can go to the local kirana next downstairs to your house, or it can go to Amazon or anybody, Big Baskets, to give it to you, or Milk Basket to give it to you next day. So I think the job of Big Basket, Milk Basket remain to those companies, but the job of the FMCG player also would remain to the shop down your house. How do they have a better assortment so that the need is kind of fulfilled? So I think both would be having their own journey, but there will be a share of market which B2C will grab from B2B, commonsensically so, as long as B2C company can retain their cost to serve. That's the most challenging thing, because we look at their P&L of B2C versus B2B. B2C is most likely bleeding, yeah? B2B is still holding it to it. So there will be I'm sure, a price war at that front. That is the first question, if I have answered you. The second one you said on the last mile challenges. It's big, and that's very important. If you talk to any FMCG companies, people don't talk about primary anymore or middle mile anymore, because that's pretty sorted, and year after year you deliver a cost reduction program there. The entire innovation is the last mile, and that is where the logistics tech companies are coming. And the starting point of that optimization was, as I said, RTT. Something would be a huge data lake. Basically, as I said, that your store location will not change, your consumer addresses will not change, your order is likely to grow if marketing is doing their job right and the product is right quality, I am generating the demand. So the supply chain's job would be how fast you can go there. So it would be smaller truck types, courier model, companies like Kogos and all who are working in this field. It could be, I must be sounding very audacious, but at some point in time, we'd also like to try drones, yeah? It could be 20 times expensive, but why not trying drone also in some locations if today, say, Samsung is trying to do in some of the part, yeah? So it's a very, very innovative area, and I'm sure our industry lobbying in that also will be good as an advocacy, but it will be a combination of heavily on tech. Maybe I would add to Anku's list 625 ke saath aur 10 type truck बढ़ जाएगा, but it has to be right cost to serve to go to your consumer faster. Yeah.
Perfect. Maybe one last question. He actually raised the hand, so maybe, yeah, just.
Hi. So I'm Rishabh. my question is to the entire panel. Like, one of the things working across supply chain we learned over the years is you have crazy amount of technology, you have a crazy amount of people resilience, but something goes wrong in operations every day, right? Every day, some warehouse, some depot, some distribution somewhere is having tons of issues, right? I want to learn a little bit about like how your companies handle these. How many of your operations managers are in WhatsApp groups communicating with people? And one of the gentlemen talked about must-haves. Like, how must-have do you think is the communication infrastructure to solve issues and to solve issues proactively, right? Would love to learn a little bit about how you handle these issues today, the things that go wrong.
Yeah, hi. So yes, we deal. To give a perspective, we have like 4 DCs, which is about 1 million square feet and about 1,200 people working there. So yes, complexities do turn up. But like I said, yes, there are donkey's amount of technologies is available, but you need to see what is the right fit based on the cost which you are able to invest in. The key is like what we have done is, because I'm sitting here comfortably, I was just checking my phone for like since morning, I haven't got any calls, so I presume things are going on well. So the thing is, drill down the last person who's working there on the floor, who's on the job. You need to make the technology easy for him. We may say pick to light, put to light, we may have all those fancy English words going around, but for that guy, he won't understand a thing. So try and make it as simple for that particular person who's over there. So I'll just give you a very small example in a brief. So for us to do a put away, if we have to move the product to a particular location, we just throw him a color on the screen. He just scans the barcode, he sees a color blue, black, gray, and he knows what black represents. All the thinking has gone into the system. The system does the thinking for him. He directs him. He understands for black means I have to go to this location and put it over here. There is another set of person who scans over there and he gets a bin list. So the background knowledge is in the system. At the front end, the technology is available to do anything you want. You just have to customize it. You tell him how easy you want. Go from bottom up rather than coming from top down. That's going to be my advice on this point.
So thanks for sharing your input. So as you would have all seen that uncertainty is going to remain as we go into future. What technology is going to help us is give the data insights, right? The decision making would be the key enabler, right? Now, what is the key differentiator is to ensure that we have the right capability building, and that comes from making things simple, which my fellow panelists talked about, but having the right capability on ground is the key to actually eliminate or probably avoid certain issues that we kind of face day to day. But capability building and culture are the 2 things which I definitely believe we as an industry need to invest more, especially in the logistics sector.
Okay. I think beautiful lady is waiting for us to close, and she wants to take the control in. So I think hand it over to you. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that insightful panel discussion.